Blog Talk Radio.
All right, good evening, everybody, and welcome to Golf Talk Live. I'm your host, Ted Odorico, and we've got a great show for you tonight. As always, going to be starting off with a great Coach's Corner panel. Got a great, fantastic panel on the show tonight, and I'll introduce them in just a moment here. And then a little bit later on in the show, I'm going to be joined by a very special guest, Bernard Sheridan. Of course, many of you may know he's an instructor at the Impact Zone Golf at the Tiburón Golf Club in Naples, Florida. We'll get an update from him on what's happening down there post Hurricane Irma. He's also the host of Breaking Par with Bernard Sheridan, a great successful podcast of his own. So we'll talk to him a little bit about that and some other things as well. But thanks for joining everybody this Thursday evening, September 14th. The show is live as always, Thursdays from 6 to 8 p.m. Central here on the blogtalkradio.com network. Best way to find us, obviously, is go to blogtalkradio.com/Golf Talk Live, or just simply type Golf Talk Live in the search key, and that will take you to the main page and to the live broadcast. But for some reason, if you can't join us live, no worries. You can join in after the show. Again, go to that link and just scroll down to the on-demand section. All of the shows, of course, are auto-recorded, so you can listen to them in their entirety should you not be able to tune in live. Also, you can go to iTunes or Stitcher.com, and under the podcasts section, just type in Golf Talk Live, and again, you can listen on those social media mediums if that's more to your liking. Always love to hear from you. If you're welcome to call into the show, the number to call is area code 646-716-4667, or you can email me personally at ted.golftalklive@gmail.com, and I'll relay or bypass a lot of the other social media that I normally ramble on about because we really need to get going on the show tonight. But you can find me on Facebook, Twitter, and, of course, LinkedIn. Always post there on all those social media mediums as well if you're interested in finding updates on the show. As I mentioned, we've got a great Coach's Corner panel tonight. Joining on the panel is Peter Egazarian, John Hughes, Jamie Leno Zimron, and, of course, our special guest panelist welcoming back, of course, is Brett Cohen. And let me just introduce each of them a little bit, and then I'll bring them on, and we'll talk about what we're going to discuss here on the show tonight. First up, of course, is Peter Egazarian. He's the head men's golf coach with the Massachusetts College of Liberal Arts, as well as a PGA and TPI teacher professional with the Traconic Golf Club. And he's also the founder of Northeast Golf Performance and a member of the Proponent Group. Next, of course, is John Hughes. Been on the show many, many times, PGA Master Professional and the Vice President of the North Florida PGA Section, and the recipient of the 2013 PGA of America Horton Smith Award, and he's also a top 30 instructor from Golf Tips magazine, so you want to make sure you check out him there as well. And also Jamie Leno Zimron, been on the show many, many times, and a favorite guest, on the panel discussions. She's a Class A LPGA teacher professional and part of our, as I said, our Coach's Corner team, always up to interesting things. Very passionate pioneer in body-mind approaches to peak performance and well-being. She's also been both a junior and senior golf champion and is the founder of Ki Golf Training, the Ki Way Inc., and Every Businesswoman Golf, known as the Golf Sensei Master Instructor. She brings holistic teachings to golfers and leaders called from a rich background as a fifth-degree Aikido black belt, also psychologist, sports counselor, corporate speaker, and executive coach. And last but not least, of course, our very special guest panelist tonight is Brett Cohen. He's back here with the next segment of the series that we started earlier this season. He's a golf fitness instructor and Fitness Over 50 authority. He's founder of the NY Golf Fitness Guru. Brett has been involved in the fitness industry for over 17 years, specializes in working with golfers and individuals over 50, and is the only trainer in New York to hold 2 golf certificates, fitness certification, TPI certified, and Czech Institute, as well as 2 fitness certifications specializing in the mature population. So, guys, welcome to Golf Talk Live, and particularly Coach's Corner. Thanks for joining me on the panel tonight.
Great to be on, Ted.
Thank you, Ted. Nice to be with everybody.
All right.
Thanks,
so
Ted.
we're going to talk about, not a problem. We're going to talk about, this is the 4th in a series that we started earlier in the year. Brett, I'm going to hand it over to you just for a second if you want to quickly recap everybody on what the topics were earlier in the year and then bring us up to date as to what we're going to talk about tonight.
Yeah, you may have to refresh me on the previous 3 topics. I know we talked about, may have been first one in the season, the most important piece of equipment in your bag, which was the body, of course. The first thing you need to do to get ready for the season, which was to get assessed, so you know what your physical abilities and limitations are. And last time, what did we speak about last time? I forgot.
We talked about. I apologize. Let me just very quickly, I'll recap them since I've got them right here. Back on March 9th, topic 1 was what you should do to prepare for the upcoming golf season. May 25th, we talked about topic 2 was the most important piece of equipment you own, of course, which is the body. July 20th, of course, was topic 3, what your golf pro doesn't know but should. And then tonight, topic 4, I'm going to let you take over from here.
So topic 4 are the special considerations for the over 50 golfer. And that's something that I deal with on a regular basis, both as a golf fitness professional and as a senior fitness specialist or functional aging fitness specialist. So I'm sure all the panelists would agree that the sport of golf provides challenges for golfers of all ages, but there are special challenges for the over 50 golfer. Here's what happens after age 50. We see age-related reductions in the following categories: a loss of flexibility of muscles, tendons, and fascia, which directly impact the mobility of joints. We have a deterioration of posture, balance, and reaction time, reduction in cardiac output. Strength and power performance are also affected. The typical aging adult will lose 30% of their muscle mass and maximal strength from the ages of 40 to 70. But here's the good news. As significant as those changes are, it's really important to recognize that they could all be minimized through the application of regular exercise.
Perfect. And that's something, obviously, that we all need to do. And guys, I know that most of us have a general understanding about fitness and so forth. And John and Peter and Jamie, we're going to handle a little bit more of the golf side of things, as Brett will sort of fill in the blanks from the fitness side. So let me just start the conversation a little bit. And John, I'm going to start with you if you don't mind. This is something that we see. I'm going to start off with most obvious, of course, is the loss of ability through rotation with the hips and the spine. This is something that we see as golfers get older. There's obviously an evaluation process that we all do as instructors. Talk a little bit about, if you don't mind, a little bit about the evaluation process and some of the things that you've experienced with some of your students that you've noticed with this particular age group.
Well, I fall into that category, so I'm not calling the kettle black to a certain degree. But what I'll start noticing things non-verbally as people walk to where I'm teaching, as they carry their bag, as they just go about standing and talking to me. Do they stand to one side predominantly versus the other? And is it so out of balance it's an obvious compensation for a weakness on the other side? It's just little things that I'll pick up on there. I'll ask the basic questions. Once they start swinging, some of those things that I observe will become obvious, some not so obvious. But the lack of flexibility, and as I watch people get older, that 30% decrease in muscular activity and ability, it's certainly there. It's certainly there, and it's something that I not only in a very caring way try to have that person understand where they are so they can be more realistic. I do try to be a little bit more proactive with various stretching exercises and flexibility, mobility exercises that not only I do, but I know of and been trained to provide. But I'll also tell them, hey, I'm I can be dangerous with the information I have. Let me refer you to my trainer that can help you with this. And a lot of them take me up on it. Some of them don't. They recognize what their limitations are, and they're fine with it. And so long as they're fine with it and they understand they're only going to get but so far with their improvement, then the relationship's great. It's when they're not fine with reality and they keep fighting it. It's sort of Freud's definition of insanity from a golf standpoint of view and the elderly. I don't consider myself elderly or any of my clients, but facts are facts. As you get older, you're going to have restrictions, and you got to be cognizant of them and deal with them.
Yeah, well said. And you're exactly right. This is something that unfortunately we all have to deal with, and there's things, and Brett, I'm going to get you in a few moments to talk about some of the things that they can do to help in that particular area. But first I want to jump to Jamie and then Peter. Jamie, I know you deal with a lot of corporate people as well as sort of everybody else in between. And I'm sure that with some of your corporate students you see, especially as they start getting up there, and I know that you do a lot of exercise in different areas and some of the golf programs that you run. Talk a little bit about some of the things that you do to help, I guess, minimize some of the issues that Brett just talked about and John did, and how you try to help them overcome some of the physical limitations that they might experience in their golf game.
Sure. Well, actually, I've developed my own golf fitness approach or system. It's called Make Your Golf Club Your Health Club. And it's kind of catchy, but it's really true. I think that it's so important to be doing daily kinds of exercise, and that it's possible not only to maintain our flexibility and our strength, but even to regain and as we age. So, but what's necessary, I think, is some kinds of daily practice. And for golfers, if you can do exercises that also relate to your golf swing and that improve your balance and your strength and your flexibility and your range of motion, well, that's great. And if you can do that kind of exercise in your home or even in your office, and I have executives, they've got their 7-iron in their office, and they use it to do exercises and to work on their golf swing all indoors. Take a 5, 10, 15-minute break. How great. You can accomplish your fitness, mind and body fitness, and improve your golf swing without having to go anywhere, right? So that it's not costing you any time. You don't have to go and spend any more money and just not be able to build it into your day. So, there's really sort of no excuses, and it's easy to do. So, the exercises use your golf club, and they help you to stretch your spine, for example, to make more space between your vertebrae, stretch your lats, stretch your hamstring, stretch out your low back. There's spinal rotational movements for your backswing and your follow-through, positions for all the phases of your golf swing, your backswing, downswing, impact, follow-through, improving the strength in your glutes and those pelvic support muscles and the erector spinae muscles, the ones that hold up your spine and that give you good posture. So all of these things relate to your golf swing. They of course just relate to your general health. The really cool part too is, in terms of sort of a body-mind practice, is that when you're focusing your mind on particular body parts, so for example, some of my exercises, say push a little bit from your left instep, that'll turn your right hip, and then let your hips turn and your shoulders, and then turn your head, turn your neck, so you're stretching the cervical spine, and turn your chin, your nose, your eyeballs. Wow, you're getting right into the spine. So things like that. Focusing your mind means that you're working on sort of neurological mind-body exercise as well as body exercise. And that's so important because as we age, we all know that there's mental deterioration a lot of times, dementia, et cetera. We know we need to use our minds, keep focusing, and we need to use our bodies so that we can prevent, loss of muscle mass or loss of bone mass. And these things can all be done, but that's why it requires daily exercise. And it's so easy to do, in your home, in your office. And when you're using your golf club for golfers and actually improving your golf swing, it's just like, the perfect win-win kind of storm.
Right. Well said as well, Jamie. You raise a lot of very interesting points. I think a lot of people when they're out there and doing whatever exercise. I mean, obviously any exercise is good for you if you can do something out there, but the more tailor-made, if you will, to the particular sport or activity that you're doing, the better it is. There's some exercises that are very conducive to helping your golf game, and then there's other exercises that maybe increase more of a bulked up type appearance that may not help with your golf swing. Peter, I want to jump to you real quick, and then Brett, I'm going to give you a moment to just also add some additional things that, again, focus in this key area right now, and then we'll go on to the next phase of it. But Peter, one of the things that I'd like for you to talk about a little bit with your students is sort of the pre and post warm-up to both the teaching lesson on the practice tee, and also maybe even a playing lesson, or even going out and playing maybe in an event or something with your students. What are some of the things that you try to do to get your students? I mean, obviously you can't be there through an entire fitness routine, but do you try to make sure that they're incorporating some kind of pre and post warm-up routine in order to get loose and limber to be able to go out and play a successful round?
Yeah, absolutely. It's also very tailored. They're very often, I have the fitness professional that I collaborate with is present at 2 supervised practice, which all my coaching people are recommended to go to. And she's very good. She tailors their warm up and cool down to their own physical limitations and their own personal bodies. So she's really fantastic in that sense. And I just help them understand how, that applies to their swing, helps them achieve what they really are able to do to be successful. I mean, especially talking about the aging population, it's really important for them to prepare their bodies, A, for performance, and then B, to, stave off any type of injuries that might be caused.
Yeah, and well said. And also, too, Peter, I think it's, as I was saying, it's not only important to do some of these things before we go out and whether we're practicing or actually playing, but also even after, when you've been out on the golf course maybe for 3 or 4 hours or whatever the case may be, or out in the practice tee. I think it's also good to have a cool down as well. Is this something that through your fitness instructor that you work with your students, try to incorporate that into some of your lessons as well, to make sure that they're following some sort of a warm, a cool down or post physical lesson or playing lesson?
Yeah, I mean, I encourage them to stay after for 5 minutes and just, regress down their clubs. If they want to start with driver, hit 2 drivers, hit, 5, 8 irons, and then start hitting shots to as short as they possibly can, to just make sure that they're defending themselves the best they can. I know that, anybody that's going to be going to the gym and doing any kind of rigorous workout afterward is going to be going through some sort of cool down period. It's kind of silly to think that we're going to ask them to do a complex motion for, half hour, 45 minutes to an hour, then just say, okay, see you, have a good day.
Yep.
It's fairly irresponsible.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and this is something, and just to sort of preface what everybody is saying, these are things that obviously we want to encourage our students to do, whatever level they may be at. But obviously we can't force you to do anything. But you certainly need to ingrain some of these things that we're going to talk about tonight into your golf regimen, if you will. It's not just about hitting golf shots and about strategy out on the golf course. It's also making sure that you're in peak condition when and whenever you're out there on the golf course, whether it's a practice session or it's a playing time as well. Sorry, go ahead.
Ted, can I just answer the question real quick about the aging population? Just to look at one of their strengths instead of just the physical limitations. I feel as though their past experiences and their ability to relate to those past experiences is a real strength of that age demographic. And if they can mentally relate to what they're trying to accomplish, it makes it easier for them. That was my only piece of input for that. Sorry.
That's a great point, Brett. What about that? We often talk about Peter makes a very good point. We often talk about some of the limitations as we get older, and I'm in that boat too. I mean, I'm going to be 54 in the new year, so I'm certainly well on my way past the 50. But Peter raises a great point. There's a lot of past experience that we bring to the table. So how can we best utilize and tap into that, at least from a fitness standpoint?
Well, certainly they have a lot of life experience, but I'm not sure it's going to depend on the individual whether they have a lot of fitness experience and how to apply the science of fitness to help them play golf better, as well as do the things they need to do, like to do, and want to do better. So knowing one's limitations, of course, is important, but some of them may have more inside of them than they realize if they're coached to do more than they're accustomed to doing. And that's what my job is to bring out the best with whatever they have left in the game or left in the tank.
Right. Now, obviously, we talked a little bit about the rotation, and obviously there's issues with deterioration in the posture. But there's also a big thing that happens with all golfers of any age, really, is that loss of mobility or flexibility or even stability. Talk a little bit, Brett, about that, and then I've got some other questions that I'm going to put out to the panel in relation to this. So talk a little bit about that area as well. That's a common thing. And what are some things that the average golfer, but particularly some of our 50-plus golfers, can do to help in these three areas, the mobility, flexibility, and stability?
Right. So they're all interrelated, of course, and John said earlier that he observes his students as they approach the lesson. He's basically observing someone's postural habits or what their postural imprint is. Oftentimes, you need to make that student aware of what their postural habits are, because most of them are not going to have great posture for golf or for life. So when we're talking about posture, which this goes across all age groups, but unfortunately it's more prevalent in the over 50 population. If you're on the phone all day long on the computer, your shoulders are going to become rounded, your upper back becomes flexed, your head will drift forward. So the muscles of the chest, top of the shoulders, back of the neck become short and tight. And what that does is it restricts the range of motion of the shoulders and rib cage, because those muscles that surround those segments lack extensibility. So flexibility training is going to be part of the solution there, including the habits that Jamie brought up, having a warm-up and a cool-down process to make sure those muscles stay as long as we could get them. I have 3 parts to my flexibility program. The first is the roll-it stage, which is changing the density of the soft tissue, the body soft tissue, the fascia. We do that with massage sticks and foam rollers and other tools that are designed to help change the density of the tissue. The next is to stretch it, and the third is to move it. So we do that in functional movement patterns such as squatting, lunging, twisting, etc., bending as well.
Interesting. Jamie, I want to jump to you this time, and then Peter, and then John. Jamie, just sort of picking up on this mobility and flexibility and stability forum here. What can you add to maybe with some of your students that you've experienced? I know that you do a lot of work, particularly with stability and even flexibility. But what are some things that you try to do with your students to ensure that they're maximizing their best potential out there in the golf course in those particular areas?
Well, I think in the areas that we've been talking about, warming up is so important, and we call them warm-ups, right? They actually warm up the body, but the warm-ups also give you a chance to focus your mind and to really be aware and present in your body. And there are simple things to do, for example, for stability in terms of make your golf club your health club. You can just have an iron, I like to have, and hold it just right next to you, or you just kind of stand on the ground and your hand is on top of it, right? So you're using it for some stability. And you do simple leg lifts. So raise one leg, keep the knee locked, and then raise and lower the leg. You can do reps, 5, 10, 25. And by keeping your knee locked, and you're really raising and lowering from the hips. So you're working on strengthening. the hip flexors, the glutes, and the leg you're standing on is gaining strength. And, of course, change legs or just move the club to the other side. I've had golfers 80, even 90 years old, may be difficult, actually, to even raise their leg or to do that with any kind of balance. Sometimes they'll use a club in right hand, left hand for, complete stability and then raise a leg one at a time. What it's really been, and there's some other ones, but what's really fascinating is that just by gaining that amount of stability and balance, a little bit more strength, all of a sudden they're able to find more power as they impact a golf ball. And power is not something they're necessarily experiencing, but now they've got stability. They've got some legs and feet under them, and they're not sort of swaying or lifting or whatever. Another just kind of basic exercise we were talking about, the fascia and the muscles around certain segments. So interesting that the arms and the elbows and the shoulders get really tight. And you can think of your elbows and your arms not being able to straighten out, kind of like your hamstrings being tight behind your knees. So you'll see people, for example, I have them just hold a golf club in both hands and raise it above their head. And you'll see that it's difficult to extend their arms out completely straight because the muscles around the whole segment around their elbows and are tight, and the shoulders are tight. So they're holding the club up above their head as much as they can, with elbows as straight as possible, and just some simple suggestion to straighten as much as they can, and then just to sort of gently pump the shoulders back, just 1, 2, 3, 4. This starts to gently loosen the shoulder girdle and to loosen as well as strengthen the back muscles that we're talking about, the sacrospinalis muscles, and then extend that club up a little bit higher. So they're starting to open up and to stretch out the arms and the elbows. Well, what does that do? With greater stability, and then they can have better extension as they take their club back, and particularly coming through. Lots of times with the elbows real tight, they can't extend their arms, and so they lift up quickly. They may top the ball or not get very much power distance. So, there's no ideal place. Like, you've got to have your arms perfectly straight, right? You're not 20 years old.
Right.
It doesn't matter.
Right.
But for each individual who gains a little bit more stability, a little bit more extension, as they're holding the club over their head, kind of lean to one side so that you're stretching out the side of your body. And we call this pulsing, where you kind of push into your hip with, again, repetitions, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, over to the other side with a breath. And you really want to breathe deeply. It's calming. It increases cardiovascular function, and more oxygen pumping through the system, oxygenating the brain. All these things happen just by doing a simple exercise. So with the sides of the body stretched out, the elbows a little bit more extended, just a little bit of gain. What I've seen with people is a little bit of gain in that kind of stability and flexibility translates into a few more yards on the golf ball or a little bit more power. And it's a thrill, it's like, wow, I'm getting better. I'm regaining. And what's also really nice is that, really, people are thrilled. And it's a thrill, too, to see someone. I've seen literally, 85, 90-year-old students who are just standing up a little bit taller, extending a little bit more, rotating a little further, and you can hear the pop on the ball. It's like, wow, and it's such a thrill. It's really exciting to actually regain function, regain power, regain distance. And the nice thing, too, as a corollary is that, you put your golf club down, we all have to walk around, and we know particularly as we get older and elderly people, probably the biggest problem or danger they face is falling. And so if we can do things to increase balance, increase strength, then we can prevent falls, and that can be life-saving,
Yeah, exactly. And again, well said. Peter, obviously we have to do, as John alluded to in the beginning, he's already evaluating his students as they're walking up for the lesson. But one of the things, obviously, that a lot of people, really at any age, this can happen. But again, we're going to focus a little bit on some of the 50 and plus golfers, as Jamie also talked about, was loss of power and flexibility. One of the things that I'm sure you've seen this, maybe you could talk a little bit about this and how you sort of try to help overcome this, is a lot of golfers, because of a deficiency they may be experiencing, whatever they may be, will try to compensate by making adjustments in their swing. Once you've sort of diagnosed that, do you then put in place some sort of a plan to help them through your fitness expert that you're dealing with, some sort of a plan to sort of overcome some of that instability, if you will, or issue that they may be dealing with, in order to not sort of use something as a crutch, in order to, in other words, a Band-Aid for their swing. Talk a little bit about, through the evaluation process with maybe one of your students, when you come across a scenario like that, and how do you try to help them overcome that?
Yeah, I mean, just to answer your question pertaining to, if it is their choice to put in the time necessary to, work on their physical capacities and their physical functional ability, then I am happy to go down that road. I'm happy to recommend them to, this person, the person that I collaborate with. But more so that I see on a everyday basis is the player, we'll say over 50 for the sake, applying a conceptual understanding of their golf swing that they feel like they have to do something that their body can't physically do. Never mind in swing, but in a functional everyday sense, and then they don't get better. They're asking themselves to do something their body can't do. So if someone has a shoulder limitation in their right shoulder and can't rotate it past 90 degrees, how can they possibly come from the inside during their golf swing? They have to some degree, move the club on the forward swing to the left. Well, if they have a physical, like a conceptual understanding that that's what their body has to do, then that starts a completely different conversation that can result in them making better ball contact, controlling their ball better, and at that point they can add distance and enjoy the game more. If they choose not to go down the road of working on their functionality, addressing limitations, there's can be a more productive conversation in that instance about how they can have a different conceptual understanding of their golf game or their golf swing or the motion they're working on, and work at a different level of efficiency, and that can help move the needle towards them enjoying the game more or executing the shot they're working on better. That it's one or the other. You have the person that's willing to make the choice to put in the time, to listen to the professional that I'm referring, or the professional that they choose to go see, or you have the person that's unwilling to do that, does not want to invest the time or cannot invest the time, who just has no self-awareness as to what their body can do functionally, and then applying I call them have-tos that they read in a magazine or were given an input by a peer, a friend, possibly a professional, or a magazine or something that they saw on television as something they feel like they have to do to play golf well. That's what I see more often, and very, very often.
Yeah, and that's a great point. John, being both of us down here in Florida, I know that we see this a lot, and just to sort of pick up a little bit on what Peter was just saying, there's a lot, unfortunately, I hate to say this, but I'll be the one to say it, there's a lot of stubborn golfers out there that don't want to sometimes do the things that are necessary to make changes. A lot of times we'll get them up in the practice tee or the lesson tee, and they just want to hit a little bit further, or they just want to hit a little bit straighter, and they're looking for a lot of times a Band-Aid or a quick fix so they can continue out and play. But obviously we want golfers to have fun. We don't want to, be too taxing and making it too difficult for golfers. But at the same time, I think that there has to be a conversation in the industry, and, we're starting a little bit of it here tonight, but to the golfer themselves, and say, a conversation that maybe starts off and saying, if you really want to improve, these are some things that you're going to have to be willing to do. Otherwise, you're going to keep going down the same path. So, John, how do we start this conversation? How do we get this 50-plus crowd? That it's a growing population, it's an aging population. of golfers out there, and more are falling into this category. Some of the newer ones coming in are maybe a little bit more fitness savvy, but some of the ones on the other side of the spectrum are a lot less. How do we start this conversation? How do we get them to realize that this is going to be ultimately for their benefit?
Videotape them walking down their stairs, and when they see themselves fall, then you got to start. Again, it's all about having fun, and I'm glad everybody's laughed because I was trying to figure out how I was going to get that done. It's real easy. I take it two ways, and it's based on the client. There are some clients that are ready to get hit head on, smack dab in their forehead with, hey, you need to get in better shape. And then there's others you have to dance around that because they are looking for Cheech and Chong's magic dust. And I always tell them, I don't have it. I'm helping you reach in your pocket to find it. So the ones I can have the conversation with immediately, I do. And the real key is not to drill it home too hard. They already know it. You don't want to become mom and dad or brother, sister, or spouse. You want to remain coach, because if you drill it home too hard and they compare you to their nagging spouse, they're not going to listen to you. So you have to do it in a way that really presents it objectively. Those kinds of people, I normally will talk about it not as a golf function, but as a life function. That when they're at that social gathering at the clubhouse Friday nights, they won't have to stand on one leg or lean on the table any longer for support. That when they're dealing with their grandkids, they can still run some circles around the younger ones versus the older ones. I try to put it more in perspective that way. The ones you have to dance around, I'll get them doing things, and they'll sort of look at me and go, hey, what in the world am I doing this for? And I will pull out that video of them falling down the stairs, i.e. their bad golf swing, or at least in their recollection, it's a bad golf swing. I don't ever call it bad. I just tell them, hey, it's functional based on what your abilities are and how you tend to want to set up for those abilities. So is it the chicken or the egg? Do you want to work on yourself or work on your golf game? Oh, why don't we work on both at the same time? And guess what I had you doing? You didn't realize that I've got you working on something that physically is going to help you out. Normally that will raise some eyebrows. The ones that get a little mad at me, I normally have a baseball bat somewhere close that I can stave them off with. But it's literally just having. I don't think it's stubborn. I give the more experienced golfer the benefit of the doubt that it's not stubbornness. It's wanting to think you can still do what you used to do. And if you go down that road with them and show them what their potential is now versus what their past recollections were, you gain a friend, you gain a relationship, and they'll go down almost any path you want with them. But if you hit them in the face too hard with, hey, you're not capable of this, you can't hit the broadside of a barn if you tried, that may work for some, but I've never found it to work for a lot. What I found is let's support them. Let's create that relationship and have them understand, hey, I live in your shoes a little bit, and here's some things I do. But at the same time, let's make it fun. It's okay to make it fun, and it's okay to make it subliminal so you don't think that you're doing anything work-wise. Bottom line, if you relate it back to their everyday life, maybe them and their spouse can roll around one extra night a week or a couple of times a month or whatever. I mean, that may work.
Yeah, John's got it right. You have to find out what motivates them. What's their why? That's the key.
A first for Golf Talk Live, John. Thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Dr. Ruth called me during Irma to check in, so I had to relay a little bit of wisdom.
Well
That's
said.
Perfect.
Brett, let me just ask you something. Peter, talked about something, and I know this is in what you're discussing here tonight, but really, one of the mistakes that we have to guard against as professionals is not getting somebody into positions that they're physically can't get into. And obviously, if we want them to do things right, we have to do things like evaluate their swing and as you talk about, and also evaluate the player's body. But there's some other things that we can do as well. So why don't you pick up on the next point, and then we'll continue on with the discussion.
Which point did you want me to talk about?
Matching the abilities with someone. Yes.
Oh, so I think Peter said it as good as anybody. You first have to give that student, client, an understanding of what they're physically capable of doing and how that relates to the golf swing. And then they have a choice whether they want to take the next step and evolve their body into a better moving body to play golf better, or play golf with the physical limitations that they're given. Because ultimately, your ability to play golf well is going to be enhanced or limited by what your physical capabilities are. So it's really up to the individual, as everyone has stated, whether or not they're going to take action on their own or with the encouragement of a coach to do something on a regular basis to get their body to move better, not just for golf, but for life.
Right. Let me just ask you a quick question, just sort of on the cusp of what John was just talking about. Obviously finding ways to motivate. Brett, I know that you work with a lot of folks that want to improve their golf game, and obviously in that 50-plus crowd. Just maybe give us some of the feedback that you get from them as to some of the limitations that they've experienced, that maybe a lot of golfers experience, for those that might be tuning in, that they can relate to, and then what you try to do, because obviously you're not a golf instructor, but you're rather a golf fitness instructor, which obviously is different from the rest of us. So what do you do to try to get them motivated and sort of open their eyes to a new way of thinking, if you will, to better their games?
Well, I have to say that people that I work with already come to me motivated. That's why they're working with me. And even if they're under age 50, they usually have the same goals. One, they want to play golf better. So they've come to a realization, whether they're 33 or 63, that their ability to play golf better is limited by how their body functions. They've either gotten feedback from a golf teaching professional like the other people on the panel, or they've watched enough golf that they could see that they don't move as well as they would like to play golf the way they would like to. The way I say it is their body doesn't move the way it needs to play golf the way they want to. So they're already motivated by the desire to play golf better, but they also tell me that they want the exercise program to carry over into daily life. And when I educate them as to what the exercise program entails, and I discuss the difference between functional and non-functional exercises, and I show them videotape of clients, past clients and current clients doing exercises that they're going to aspire to, then they get it. And they realize that over time, their body can change and will change. So they're already motivated.
Right. No, that's great. Is what John said earlier, too, is stubbornness maybe the wrong word to use in describing some of the golfers? What would be a better way to characterize maybe misinformed? Or
lack of information. There are still people I talk to on a regular basis. Just one potential client the other day that even after an extensive conversation could not grasp the difference between non-functional and functional exercise, because there's still a lot of people that think that strength training needs to be done in a seated environment because that's what they're accustomed to seeing in a gym. And so I go about explaining to them why that's less than ideal for a variety of reasons, which I'm not sure you want to get into tonight. But sometimes they get it, sometimes they don't. Most often, if I'm in front of them, they're going to get it because I have a way of expressing it that is irresistible. So they're going to understand why it's different and why it's important. So
sounds like we might have another Dr. Ruth moment coming here, but we'll have to save that one for have to save that one for another time, Brett.
Okay.
Now, Peter, I wanted to ask you as well, because I know that obviously you're now the as you made mention, or as I made mention, the opening credits that you're now the headsman men's golf coach with the Massachusetts College of Liberal Arts. So this is a new venue for you that you've been working at, and obviously, we're dealing with a younger crowd in that. But I imagine that you also do talk about some preventative. I mean, at some point they're going to be hitting this market segment. Are there things that you do or that you're going to be doing in your programming that will help in a maybe preventative way to keep them in their peak performance as they continue on their journey and eventually get to that stage? In other words, better prepare them. Because this is something that really, let's be honest, that in my generation and John and so on and so forth, this is something that was really not as readily available as it is today. So what are some things that you're doing or you're going to be doing in that position to maybe help foster that?
At their stage, their level of functionality is not at a maximum, but it's pretty close to the peak. You're talking about, I'll call them kids because they still are, but you have young adults who are between the ages of 19 and 23. No matter what their body fat percentage might be, their muscle function and their their joint function is pretty close to their peak. So what I work with the young people is on levels of efficiency in their golf motion so that you can be installed during their functional time in their life, instead of what I see often afterward is that you have a player that's reaching their 30s or their early mid-30s and they start experiencing the beginning of the drop-off, and they can't move like they did when they played college golf or competitive junior golf, and they're coming to me or another coach or teaching professional to help them reach that level of efficiency at that point so that they can play further and further and further into their lives, and they're not going to experiencing the injury or the stress put on their bones and joints by inefficient movements. And for the college students, obviously we're looking to just help them lower their scores as much as possible, but also I look at it as just a long-term investment in them, in helping them move as efficiently as they possibly can in their golfing motions. It's just not their full swing.
Right. Yeah. And obviously I think that the Brett, as you were mentioning earlier, is that the lack of knowledge or education is really what hinders a lot of folks out there from really being at their best. And I think the information out there, as long as you're careful where you're getting the information from, is much more readily available and accessible to especially the up and coming golfers now. So it really sort of behooves. Yes, go ahead.
Sorry, just to finish the thought real quickly. Given the fact that this is my first season with the team, we're heading into our first off season. The college does have a great support team on the physical side. They are going to be working with the physical trainers over the winter, heading into the spring season, just to prepare their bodies as best as possible. But that's something that is right in the infancy of that entire process. So we are attacking it from that end. I just didn't finish my thought there. That's all.
Sorry, nope, not a problem. Brett, just to wrap up real quick, any sort of closing thoughts or comments that you want to make, and then I'm going to go around to everybody and give them a chance to let the folks know where they can reach out and get in touch with them.
Yeah, sure. I think part of what holds a lot of people back over the age of 50 is that after age 50 they start to move less instead of moving more, because they actually need more movement after age 50 because of all the things I mentioned earlier on in the show. And that's society's expectation of them, which often becomes their expectation of themselves. And as we get older, none of us are going to stay the same, but you can make regular exercise a habit and part of your life, and that will extend and improve your life. So there's a famous quote I wanted to mention from a jazz pianist named U.B. Blake. He made it age 99, and he said, "If I'd known I was going to live this long, I'd have taken better care of myself." So what I would end with is it's never too late to start feeling great, as I like to say.
Well said. Very quickly, Brett, I'll let you finish off. Where can the folks, if they want to get more information, where can they reach out to the website and so forth?
Yeah, website is NY Golf Fitness Guru, all one word, and all the contact information they could possibly want is on that site. The links to all the social media outlets as well. The topic that we talked about, part of what we talked about tonight, is going to become an article for the MyTPI website, which is a great resource for anyone who plays golf at any age. So that should be online shortly. I'll let everybody know when it is.
Perfect. Thank you. Peter?
Yeah, thanks for having me on tonight, Ted. I really appreciate it. It's always great to be, seems like John and I have to get to share a spot on the panel every time I'm on, so good to be on with John again. And Jamie and Brett, thanks for your time, too. People can visit my website at gogolfcoach.com. I'm pretty prevalent on social media. I do have pretty much every platform. You can search my full name. My Facebook page is Peter Egazarian, Performance Coach, or PGA and TPI Performance Coach. My Instagram is pretty prevalent. It's at Daily Golf Coach, and on Twitter I am at Daily Golf Pro. But again, thanks, Ted, for having me on. And if there's any questions, just please reach out. I'm happy to answer them for you.
Perfect, and congratulations on the new addition to your repertoire. Much continued success and good luck this year as the head men's golf coach at the College of in Massachusetts. So good luck with that. Jamie?
Thank you.
Hello?
Hi, Jamie. Yes, hi.
Yeah.
Go ahead and let the folks know if they want to reach out.
Oh, sure. Well, again, thank you, Ted, and thanks to all my esteemed panel members. It's great just to hear from everybody and talk about this subject. People can find me at kiaigolf.com, Kiai golf.com, or direct call is always helpful as well, easy to reach at 760-492-GOLF, 492-4653. And I just wanted to share one story before we close, Ted, if I can. My father's now 97, and he broke his hip, but it was when he was 89 and out riding his bicycle. He used to stop to answer his cell phone. That's how he broke his hip. But when he was 80 is when I started to teach Golf Bliss, and Ki Golf Bliss is balance, length, and integrate, stretch, strengthen. And I made a DVD series, which is available, kind of a classic series now on my website. But my dad was always a very average to worse golfer, and once in a blue moon broke 90. Usually shot in the 90s and in the hundreds. Anyways, he became my student at age 80, and he continued to improve until that day 9 years later when he unfortunately fell off his bicycle. But he actually shot more rounds in his 80s than he did in his 40s or 50s or 60s, which was really cool. And he literally carried my DVD series around in his trunk in his car, because everywhere he went, at a driving range or playing golf, people said to him, "Oh my God, how old are you?" And he'd tell them his age, and nobody could believe it, because he had a full backswing, a full turn, a full follow through. He was hitting the ball straight, with pretty nice distance, not huge, but just and really consistent, and this really nice golf swing and amazing balance for his age. Anyways, you tell him how old he was, and they go, "It's impossible. That just can't be true." And he'd go, they say, "What are you doing?" And he'd say, "Well, you know what? My daughter made this thing," and it's not because she's my daughter, but because it's helped me so much. And he was like my best salesman, which was really great. And he really encouraged me way early on when I started teaching some of this Ki Golf and Golf Bliss and stuff. He encouraged me to work with, I like that phrase, experienced golfers, and particularly people even getting up into their 80s and even 90s, and to see just what was possible. So I wanted to share that story because he's been such an inspiration. And by the way, he's a lefty as well.
Well done. That is definitely an inspiration. There's no excuse for those of us out there in their 50s after listening to that. Thank you very much, Jamie. And John, certainly last but not least, your contact information, and then just a quick update on how things are post Hurricane Irma in Orlando.
Sure. First, Peter, Jamie, Brett, thanks for being on. This is always a pleasure to be on with Ted and whoever's on with me, and always a lot of fun. I do try to crack things up here and there, I got to admit, but
you
it's
kept
all
us laughing
for
tonight,
for everybody, especially for the listeners. You can reach me at johnhughesgolf.com. I teach at a Falcons Fire Golf Club in Kissimmee, which now looks like a big pond in certain places. Central Florida did get pretty ravaged from the golf side of things. Until it touches you personally, like it has me, you sort of knock it off as something you see on the news. Do reach out to those people that were affected by Harvey and Irma and let them know you're there to help them, to do whatever it is for them. Believe it or not, just a simple bag of ice is some things that were simply needed by me and my family. And when it showed up knocking on the door, it was very much appreciated. We're digging out of it slowly but surely, according to the electric people here. It could be as late as next week before some people regain power. I was lucky enough to get mine back literally 40 minutes before the show today, so that's why I was saying I was doing better earlier. Certainly doing better now than I was at the beginning of the show. So it's, hang in there for those people in Central Florida, South Florida. If you're accessible to a computer or phone and you know of a place where you can help out, I strongly encourage people to do so. Until it affects you personally, you just never know. Always start the charity from within yourself, from the home, and give outwardly. It pays dividends tenfold throughout the lifetime of you and your family.
Well said. And John, how can they reach you? I know you've got a website and that. Let the folks know how they can reach out to you.
Yeah, John at John Hughes Golf is the email. Telephone number is 407-852-8547. I'm all over social media, as is Ted. I always bump into him there versus in person, which is probably a good thing for us both. But you can reach me Facebook and Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn. Just feel free to reach out. I'm always available to answer a question or discuss golf, or if you're looking for some help, once we can get Falcons Fire back open next week, I'll be available to assist you that way as well.
Well, thank you, John and Jamie and Peter and Brett. As always, it's a pleasure and an honor to have you guys join me here on the Coach's Corner panel here on Golf Talk Live. And I can't emphasize this enough. It's truly not only an honor, but it's certainly a privilege to. I always feel like I get something out of this as well as the listeners do. It's always good for us in the profession to exchange thoughts and information and help one another, as John just pointed out, and certainly definitely in a humanitarian way as well. So don't forget to reach out, as John suggested. And thank you guys, as always. I'm glad, John, that you're safe, and glad that the power is back on. And just continue, guys, and doing all the great work that you do. And until the next time on Coach's Corner, I will talk to you later. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Bye, guys.
All right.
Bye-bye. Bye.
All right. That was the Coach's Corner panel tonight. Peter Egazarian, John Hughes, and Jamie Leno Zimron. And, of course, very special guest panelist tonight, Brett Cohen, golf fitness instructor from New York. Thanks, guys, for doing a great job. And obviously we can't cover everything on the topics. We try to touch some of the highlights. And as everybody sort of agreed on tonight, we certainly can't force anybody to get out there and get into some sort of fitness routine. But if you want to enjoy the game and have more fun, it's certainly in your best interest to not just work on some of the fundamentals and the basics of the golf swing, but to get out there and work on yourselves as well. As some of the stories shared tonight, it will definitely pay some dividends. But thanks again to the panel tonight. And as I mentioned, I'm going to be joined here by my very special guest tonight, Bernard Sheridan. He's the instructor at Impact Zone Golf at Tiburón Golf Club in Naples, Florida, and also the host of his own podcast, Breaking Par with Bernard Sheridan. And let me just tell you a little bit more about Bernard. Originally from Pennsylvania, another northerner as well. Bernard currently, as I mentioned, works as an instructor at Impact Zone Golf at Tiburón. And has been sharing his vast teaching experience for 19 plus years, and again also host of Breaking Par with Bernard Sheridan, which is a very successful podcast. And also he's worked as an audio engineer for 30 plus years as well. So a great repertoire. And we're going to talk a little bit of golf when he joins me here in just a moment or two. And we will continue, as we always do, this great conversation. And I'm going to certainly talk to him a little bit about his surviving, if you will, and getting through Hurricane Irma. Of course, being in Naples, as I mentioned, is where he's based out of now. Lots of struggles with many of the folks down there, as it was really hit hard when the hurricane came into the United States. It's pretty much where it entered landfall, and there was certainly, as most of you have seen, lots of flooding and so forth. So we'll just give him a moment or two. But while I wait for Bernard to come on the show, let me just remind everybody, of course, that we are live every Thursday evening from 6 to 8 p.m. Central, or 7 to 9 for those of you on the East Coast, and 4 to 6 for those of out in the Pacific Standard Time. And the best way to find us, of course, is go to blogtalkradio.com, and up in the search key you can type Golf Talk Live, and that will take you to the main page. And you can listen there either live, or if for some reason you can't join us live, not to worry, just scroll down to the on-demand section that you will see there. And that is all of the previously aired shows. You'll find it there in their entirety. As of course, as I mentioned at the beginning of the show, they are auto-recorded. And for those of you that maybe prefer to listen in a different medium, you can go to Stitcher.com or even iTunes.com, and under the podcast section, again, just type in Golf Talk Live, and you can listen to the broadcasts in their entirety there as well. So whatever type of media you want to, or medium, that you'd rather listen to, there's all kinds of options there. And as I mentioned, I'm all over social media, Facebook, Twitter. My Twitter handle is Ted and Buck CEO. CEO, of course, is in capital letters. And thank you again for all of the recent followers on Twitter. And also LinkedIn. You can just type in my whole name, Ted Odorico, and it's Odorico is the correct spelling of the last name. And I see that it looks like my friend Bernard is ready to go here. So let me bring on my very special guest tonight, Bernard Sheridan.
Hey, how are you?
Good evening, Bernard. And I'm doing very well. Welcome to the show.
I'm glad to be here, Ted. Thanks for having me.
Not a problem. I know that you had, before we get into talking golf tonight, why don't you just maybe give us a little bit of an update? I've already done the intro before you came on live, so everybody's familiar with who you are and that. But maybe just touch a little bit. I know that you obviously went through, I'm sure, a very traumatic experience here recently with the Hurricane Irma, of course, passing through Naples, which is where you're residing now. Tell us a little bit about how things are down there right now, and then we'll talk a little bit about some golf.
Well, really what happened for me was I left Naples and went up to Orlando because my son goes to school in Orlando. So I took my daughter and I headed up to Orlando to my son's, and I thought that we would escape up in Orlando. And then we found that it was going to actually engulf the entire state. So we decided that we were going to leave the state, and we fled to Tennessee. And we went to Johnson City, Tennessee, and we stayed in Tennessee for 4 days.
Wow.
And then from there, we saw it was coming into Tennessee. So then we left Tennessee and we drove back to Pennsylvania, where I'm actually from. And I am right now, as I'm speaking to you, on the road in South Carolina, on my way back to Orlando with my son. My daughter stayed in Pennsylvania. She's going to fly back next week. So as for, we live actually in a little bit north of Naples in Estero, and my wife actually stayed in Naples in a home that was able to withstand Category 5 hurricanes, and she seemed to be okay. And a few days ago, she went back to our house, and luckily for us, we still had electricity, and we did not sustain a tremendous amount of damage. We were very, very fortunate.
Wow. Well, that's first and foremost, Bernard, let me just say I'm glad that you were able to get out there safely, and I'm obviously glad that your family was as well, and particularly your wife who stayed back there. I'm glad that she was able to seek a shelter. I know it was, being up here in the northwest part of Florida, we certainly didn't feel any of the impact that they did down in your area, Naples, and obviously Orlando. It really, for lack of better words, a lot of it had kind of fizzled out by the time it worked up here, but then sort of built up strength again when it hit into the Carolinas. They actually sustained more damage and more flooding and so forth in that area. But I'm glad that you made it safely, and I'm glad that you're on your way back, and that in your particular area, I'm glad that you sustained much less damage than some of the other areas. But I know there'll still be a lot of cleanup and whatnot in Naples and other parts of Florida. But like I said, we're certainly grateful that you were able to make it out there. So let's switch things a little bit, and let's talk about golf. And I want to first, before we get into what you're doing and at Tiburón and talk a little bit about Tiburón, let's go back a little ways, maybe just share with the listeners how you kind of got into golf and who were some of your inspirations earlier on in golf, who were maybe some of the players or even some of the coaches that you were familiar with that sort of put that bug or that fire in you to get into golf.
Well, for me, it's kind of a funny story how I actually got into golf, because at the time when I started to play, which was later in life really, I really didn't start playing until I was about 33 years old. And I was an audio engineer and in the entertainment field. And my father-in-law had a couple of trophies in his home for golf. So I assumed he was a pretty good golfer. And little did I know that they were for D flight and not an A flight. But I said to him, I thought this would be a good way for me to bond with my father-in-law. And I said, how about we go out and play around the golf? And he had a couple of sets of golf clubs. And I said, I'll use one of your sets of golf clubs, and we'll go and we'll play. So I went to a golf course and played 18 holes. And I shot an 82. And and he shot 97. And he wasn't too happy. He was absolutely kind of mad at me. And he said, I thought you didn't play golf. And I said, I don't play golf. And he goes, that's a lie. I've been playing golf for years, and you beat the heck out of me. And I said, I didn't even know I was playing against you. I said, I thought we were just playing. And so of course I caught the bug. And then not that long after that, he actually got prostate cancer. And when he went to get that looked at, they found out that he needed a triple bypass. So they did a triple bypass. He was in the hospital for a month. God rest his soul now, because he's passed away. But because he needed that triple bypass, when he came back off of recovery from all that, he never golfed again because he was afraid. He had his chest split open, and then by that time he just didn't want to do it anymore. And I really got the bug, and I started to take lessons. And unfortunately for me, a lot of the instructors that I went to, they really didn't help me too much. So I decided that when I was younger, I taught guitar and bass. And I thought, you know what, if I really study this, I bet I can do a better job than they do. And I kind of got passionate about it and decided that when I got older that I was going to become a golf coach. And I started that when I was 39, and I'm 59 now, and I've been doing it ever since. But I also did audio for many years along with that, and basically it's only been the past 2 years that I've strictly just been a golf coach, and I haven't done anything in the music industry. I retired from that. I was in that for 30 years.
Right. What's interesting, I just want to go back for a second when you were, sharing the story with your father-in-law. That's sort of always par for the course. When you invite somebody to play with you that's never played before, that's a very common theme. For some reason, they just sort of have a natural pickup of the game, and I'm sure he's probably regretted at that time letting you use a set of his clubs, especially since you beat him.
I think he actually said, "You can have those clubs." I should have never got the ones I got. He kept saying, "I should have got ping clubs. I should have got pings." And to tell you the truth, I don't even remember what kind of clubs they were. And then when I actually got clubs myself, I tried to hit ping, and I hooked them off the planet. I could not hit a ping club to save my life at that time.
Right.
Because most of the pings were offset, and I was hitting everything left.
Yeah. Yeah, they were difficult. When they first came out, they were very difficult for a lot of folks that weren't familiar because, like you said, they were offset and it just wasn't normal for most people's eyes. Was there any golfers, before you started playing and then ultimately got into coaching and that, was there any players that growing up that you kind of, I won't say go as far as necessarily say to admire, but that you really enjoyed and kind of put that spark as well into you? Was there any particular players growing up that caught your eye?
Well, I think the two players that caught my eye the most when I was younger, because I did see golf and I did watch it, and I wasn't a huge fan of golf. I was more of a baseball fan, and I still am a real big baseball fan. But I think the two that I liked the most are actually three. Was Jack Nicklaus and Lee Trevino and Gary Player. I liked Arnie too, but there was something about those guys. And then I had kind of like, as I got older, I had many brushes with Gary Player. And out of that whole grouping, he really became my favorite player. And only because of the funny little things that happened with me and him. Which was really crazy, but and then today, really my favorite player is Jordan Spieth. I tremendously admire him as a person, and of course he's just such a fantastic player, and I can see that same look in his eye that you could see in Jack's eye. I mean, he just has that certain kind of look that he's gonna not give up no matter what, and that's how Jack always was, and I always admired that.
Yeah, and Jordan, just to add very quickly, and then I want to move on to what you're doing now. The other thing about Jordan too is he has a tremendous work ethic. He puts a lot of thought. It's not just out there beating balls day in, day out. He actually puts a lot of thought into his game. And that really, I think, separates. I mean, there's so many great players out in the PGA and, of course, the LPGA Tour, as you know, but there's something special that separates the players that sort of hover around the top on a week-in, week-out basis. And as you said, there's sort of that twinkle in his eye that is very reminiscent of Jack Nicklaus. You're exactly right. And I think a lot of that is they both have a good work ethic, but they also have a very strong mental side of the game, which to be a top player, you've got to have. You can't be just a great ball striker. You've got to be somebody that mentally can stand the test of time out in the golf course, and he definitely has that. So I'm in agreement with you on that. Let's move on to what you're doing now. You're an instructor at Impact Zone Golf at of course, the very prestigious Tiburón Golf Club. Tell us a little bit about your academy there, and also a little bit about Tiburón, about the course itself.
Well, the academy that's at Tiburón is on the back of the range. It's a pretty nice layout there. It's a good size driving range, and there is actually two covered areas where we do lessons, and then also there's a short game area there, and there's a nice area that has uneven lie, where it's like a big mound where you can do uphill, downhill, side hill, and then a good-sized putting green back there. And then we have a small office in the back that we can actually bring students in and look at video in there, as opposed to just looking at it on the computer out under the canopy. And it's a beautiful golf course. The grounds are fantastic. I mean, it's really gorgeous. Right now they're rebuilding the black course, and that will be ready in November. I'm sure that with the hurricane, there's going to be a little bit of a push back due to that. I know that the course is not going to open up for another week and a half, they said. So we're, of course, going to try to get our area and get them to let them have us open that up so that we can begin lessons out there again. And then we have also headquarters in North.
It looks like my apologies. It looks like Bernard's call got dropped. He probably, as he said, he's traveling through South Carolina, so I'll just wait for a second and let him call back in. It looks like he probably got into an area with some issues with cell service, so hopefully he'll be able to dial back in here real quick. But in the meantime, let me just remind everybody, of course, we are live, and actually here he is, so let me just bring him back in.
Yes. Sorry, we dropped the call there. So when you're on the road,
that's okay.
Sometimes that'll happen.
Yeah, not a problem.
The golf course itself is gorgeous. I mean, and it's in great shape right now. The Gold Course was rebuilt last year. It's in fantastic shape. That course is very, very tricky. It's like Augusta in the fact that there's no rough anywhere.
Yeah.
So if you miss the green by a little bit, it's going to roll into either a waste area or into brush or into water. So that makes it difficult. And most of the greens, the slope on the greens are only about 1%. So they are very subtle in break. So they're not very easy to read. And then the greens are set up like British Open type greens, where it's stacked sides.
Oh, wow.
And it's like a wall. So if you end up in a bunker and you're close to that wall, you pretty much have to hit out the other way. It's really difficult to get over the walls that are in there. And hence the reason, more than likely, why they have a PGA, the sharp shootout there, and then of course the LPGA plate there too. And it's very difficult course.
Yeah, it's a fantastic track for sure. It'd be exciting to see what's going to take place with some of the changes, and in addition to the black course and that. It'll be interesting to see what they do to it. Let me ask you a question. I want to get into a little bit more specific about golf. Obviously, a lot of our high handicappers out there seem to worry more about their distance control and the look of their swing as opposed to the impact position. Obviously, the importance of the impact position. Talk a little bit about that, because obviously that's something that I'm sure you focus at your academy. What do you do to try to overcome some of the typical stereotype golfers out there that seem to be only concerned about adding yards to their game and how pretty their swing, for lack of better words, looks? Obviously, that's not the most important thing. As you mentioned earlier, Lee Trevino is somebody that you certainly grew up admiring in later in life. And obviously, he didn't have the prettiest swing out in the PGA Tour, but he was effective, and that's because he knew how to get it through impact well. Talk a little bit about how important impact is and what you do at the academy to really instill that in your students.
Well, really what I think a lot of players, there's nobody who doesn't want to hit it farther. And
sure.
So, what we say is, the best way to hit it farther is not to swing faster or to hit it harder, but to hit it more precisely and to make better impact. And if you can hit it more on the sweet spot, then you're going to get a much higher efficient strike, which is going to translate into higher ball speed, which is going to make it go further. I mean, a good example is if you get two guys who swing at 100 miles an hour, and one is not very consistent in where he hits it in the center of the face, he's going to lose 10 or 15 yards right away. And you can get another player who's swinging at the same exact speed and is hitting it 15 to 20 yards by the same player, and they don't understand what the difference is because they say, well, what the heck? I mean, we're both swinging at 100 miles an hour. Shouldn't we be hitting it the same distance? And that's really not true. So we try to let players understand that making precise impact is tremendously important, and the style of the swing really doesn't matter, because if you look at all the great players, and as we just spoke of, if we take Lee Trevino and Jack Nicklaus, they had two completely different swings, but they were both very precise ball strikers, and that's why they played so well. Jim Furyk is another example of that. I mean, you know, his swing is very wacky looking, but it's extremely effective for him. So really, we don't get tied up in swing style. We don't worry about that. What we worry about is what's called 5 dynamics, and those are 5 things that all of those players have in common and all do the same thing. They may not have the same swing style, but those 5 dynamics they have in common, every single one of them.
Right. And you know, in today's game, and I wonder if the industry as a whole has done a little bit of a disservice to themselves by trying to pigeonhole everybody into the same sort of swing style. Like, I'll give you an example, and then I'll let you comment on it. You know, we see a lot of, unfortunately, there has been a lot of coaching in that. We're trying to get everybody to have this, sort of picture-perfect looking swing. But as we know, everybody is different. We're all, inherently different as humans, but our body styles, our body types are different, and our ability to swing is going to be different from one another. Is that something that you've seen that maybe you try to shy away from, is trying to put everybody in the same, block, if you will, when it comes to their golf swing, or do you try to keep everybody within their own individual efforts and abilities?
We try to keep everybody in their own individual effort, and what we try to do is improve their dynamics. And if we can improve their dynamics, then we can improve their impact. And if we can improve their impact, we can begin to have them strike the ball more consistently, which will then lead to lower scores. And to get tied up in, because here's the thing, not everybody can do a certain swing style. They can't get in, some people can't get in those positions. So the positions that we're worried about, everybody can do. And I have several students who will say, oh, my swing is too long, or I crossed the line at the top, or I do this, do that. And we won't change those things unless we know that it's going to improve their impact. So what I suggest to all players out there is, don't try to swing like somebody who isn't you, unless it's going to improve your impact. If it'll improve your impact, okay, then we're okay with that. But if it's not going to improve your impact, then why do it? It makes no sense.
Yeah, and that's what I'm talking about. For many years, and you're starting to see a change now, I think, in the industry. But for a long time, it just seemed like everybody was coming out with a new swing theory and, sort of shuffling everybody into that. And I think one of the dangers with that is, as you said, not everybody can swing the same way. So for some, it might come easily, that particular theory or style, and for others, it may be more difficult. And I think what it did is, for the ones that maybe weren't able to get into some of the positions as easily, it was a little bit of a turnoff to them. Would you agree with that? And again,
absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And I mean, I'm not going to name.
Really
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say that there were a lot of different. Sorry, there were a lot of different styles, and all I was going to say was there are a lot of different styles and theories out there, and I wasn't going to name any of them, but you know what I'm talking about. But please go ahead.
Absolutely. Yeah. See, here's the thing. If I go to and that's why I got involved in coaching, honestly, because the coaches that I saw that were trying to help me become a better player tried to put me into a style that didn't fit me. And and they told me I needed the club to be in this position, and it's because it worked for them personally. Now,
yes,
what it did was it just confused me, and it kind of messed me up, and it actually set me back, and I started to move backwards. So I decided that I was going to get away from those people, and I was going to start to study more impact. Now, the way that I ended up with Bobby Clampett was that a lot of the things that Bobby came up with, I was coming up with at the same time on my own. And when I found out that he was doing the same things that I was doing, then I got in touch with him, and then I found out he had a certification program, and I got certified by him. And then he was very pleased with what I did, and then I got the next certification, and then he asked me if I would be interested in being a full part of a team that he was putting together to build a new academy in the Fort Myers area, which ended up at Tiburón. Originally, we thought it was going to be at Gateway, which is in Fort Myers. But it ended up at Tiburón, and which I'm very glad because, you know, there's no better place in South Florida than Tiburón other than maybe the Blue Monster down there in Miami, Doral. So those are probably well-known golf courses in South Florida, and I feel very honored to be, part of that team. And it's lucky for me that a lot of the things that we just had like minds and really looked at, that 4-inch forward swing bottom and that flat lead wrist and maintaining that lag and impact and things of that nature, dynamic, instead of trying to make it into positions. All those dynamics happen more as a result of doing things correctly and delivering the club more with your body than with your arms.
Yeah, and I agree 100%. I think that, I guess what I was getting at too was, there's been a lot of theories put out there, and again, there's too many to list. And I think it created more frustration, and it leads me to the next, topic that I want to discuss with you, and that is, as we both know, technology has driven the industry for the last several years. From everything from new apps to, TrackMan, FlightScope, all kinds of things out there. Most of it is fantastic. Some of it, might still be out in what people think about it, but for the most part, it's pretty good. One of the concerns that the industry, I think, has started to recognize is, again, you get a segment of the population that relies too heavily on that technology. So, obviously, I know that you do use some technology. How do you find and create a balance when using it, not overwhelming your students, but at the same time using it for what it is, and that is a tool?
Well, what we use it for is a measuring device to see progression. and it's not as much just numbers, but seeing a progression in where the path is, where the swing bottom is happening, where what the launch angle is, what the spin rate is, and understanding that there are certain numbers that need to be produced to maximize your effectiveness. And
right.
But we don't try to get students to produce those numbers. And what I mean by that is, all right, you're at let's say you're hitting a 6-iron, and you say, okay, well right now you're at 8,000 RPM with your 6-iron, so we need you to be at 6,000 RPM. Well, we don't say that to them because that's confusing. That's like a doctor saying you're at 300 cholesterol and we need you at 200. So you as a patient would say, okay, well, I understand. I kind of understand what the numbers mean, but really, what do I have to do to change those numbers? And should I be constantly looking at the numbers? Well, no. You'll look at the numbers when you come back and we test you again. And if the numbers are better, we know you're moving in the right direction. So we don't really get tied up in numbers or path or all those other things. We use it as a way for students to understand what they're doing. And then when we see them again, if we put them up there again, we can show them how they're progressing. So what that really does for us is it allows us to have tangible proof that there is a progression and they are getting better. Because a lot of times what happens is players become better, but their scores don't reflect that. And most players believe that if they're going to get better, they have to lower their scores or they're not getting better. And that's not true. You can become a much better ball striker, but still not lower your handicap. And it might be because you're not working on now you're becoming a more efficient ball striker with your full swing, but there might be other parts of your game that are lacking. And that could be short game, it could be inside 100 yards, it could be putting, it could be getting up and down, it could be sand play, it could be mental game, it could be core strategy. There's a lot of different components in the game that makes you be able to actually lower your handicap. A lot of people think that they can just hit it farther, they're going to lower their handicap, and that's not true.
Right. Well, and that's exactly right. I mean, we see a lot of long ball hitters that, certainly are great golfers, but they're not in the hunt week in, week out because they don't have maybe other parts of their game. One player that comes to mind, and you may or may not agree with this, who was obviously, in this day and age, was a phenomenal ball striker, certainly has, won some, tournament here and there, but I don't think has risen to the level he could have been simply because of some of the things you just point out, and that's Luke Donald. Phenomenal ball striker. I mean, he's been compared to some of the greats, but, you don't see him as an effective player, but he's an effective ball striker. So that kind of proves what your theory, what you were just talking about, is you can hit the ball fantastic, but if you're not putting all the pieces together and scoring, then it doesn't really matter. And I think this is the trap, right? I think this is the trap that a lot of amateurs fall into, is they're too worried, again, as I said earlier, about getting into that perfect ball striking and not really learning how to play the game.
I totally agree. I mean, the name of the game is getting the ball in the hole. And and you don't have to be the greatest ball striker to do that. You have to be but you do have to have several different parts of your game effective to be able to do that. And I think the problem is that too many people teach just off of the driving range mat, and these guys are playing. And then when these guys go and play it or go hit balls at the range, they're hitting all these great shots, and then they go out and play, and they're hitting it all over the place. And it's because they're not learning how to do things on the golf course and how to figure things out. And when they start to actually learn how to figure things out, that's when they start to see changes in their scores.
Yeah, and that's, again, is a great point because, as I was saying, it's great what you're doing on the range. You certainly have to develop those fundamentals, and you have to be able to gain some consistency in your game. But when you now get out on the golf course, most players, and I'm sure you've seen this so many times you've lost count, a lot of players have a difficult challenge taking their range game out on the golf course. They're hitting them great on the range, but when they get, as you said, when they get out on the golf course, and I like the fact that you said earlier that you talked about how you're able to create a lot of different scenarios in your academy, uphill, downhill, side hill lies, this sort of thing, to give a more realistic feel for some of the players out there. Are playing lessons something that you subscribe to a lot, and do you try to get your students out on the golf course as well as on the practice team?
Absolutely, and if it was up to me, every other lesson would be a playing lesson. And the reason why is because, it's funny, but golf is the only sport where people practice not on the place that they play.
Right.
You play tennis, you play on a tennis court. You practice baseball, you might go into a batting cage, but 9 out of 10 times you're on the baseball diamond. If you play basketball, you're on the basketball court shooting on a hoop. It's almost identical. So I think the problem with most people who practice on a range is, number one, a lot of them will only hit like 2 or 3 clubs on the range, and they're hitting off a level lie the whole time.
Yes.
That never. I can't think of any round of golf that I've ever played that I hit more than maybe 2 or 3 shots off of a level lie. Even on some tee boxes, they're not always exactly perfectly level. So that's a big problem, and I think that a lot of people don't. I think that now people are starting to understand that, and instructors are starting to understand the importance of that. And I write blog posts and things like that all the time.
Right.
And I tell my students all the time that when they practice, I honestly don't like them to hit the same club more than 2 times, because they're never going to do that on the golf course. So if they practice a little bit more like they play, and if they don't try to hit 100 balls in a row with a 7-iron or a driver, all that's going to do is just build in a mechanical. That's fine if you're trying to work on a specific thing, but you're never going to do that on the golf course. And Ben Hogan, when he practiced, he never hit more than 21 balls without taking a break.
Right.
He would hit 21 balls, and in his day it was a little bit different, but he would hit 21 balls and then sit down and have a cigarette and a glass of ginger ale. And he had the ginger ale because it helped him feel more, he felt that it gave him better touch and feel. And I guess he thought the cigarette was to calm his nerves or something. But he also would make the last 3 balls in those 21 balls. If he didn't hit his target, then he had to hit another 21 balls. If he hit that target in those last 3 balls, then he could go home. He would not go home until he did that. But he went home a lot because, according to stories that I've heard, and stories that I've heard from actually people who actually personally witnessed him doing demonstrations, he could hit any iron within 3 feet of his target on a regular basis. And most of the time, he would hit the ball right into the shag bag. The guy who was shagging it didn't even have to pick it up. It went right into the bag. That's how good he was.
Yeah, it's amazing, you know. And I've always said, you know, I had the pleasure of, unfortunately he's no longer with us, I had the pleasure of interviewing legendary Billy Casper on my program, I think about 3 or so years ago. And, you know, he was sort of the same mindset. You know, they just had a different way of dealing with things when they were, you know, up and coming on the tour and playing golf. And, you know, it was a lot less about mechanics and more about, you know, actually out there playing and strategizing, if you will, much like, as you said earlier, with Nicklaus and even Jordan Spieth. So it was a much different breed back then. They, you know, some of the players certainly, you know, Nicklaus certainly didn't, you know, get out in the driving range and beat balls for hours upon hours. You know, he thought about the types of shots he was going to be needing maybe for when he was playing Augusta National or some other important tournament. So he was focusing on actually playing the game and strategizing on how he was going to play a specific golf course, and not about hitting a picture-perfect, you know, golf swing or a shot each and every time. It was about bringing what he knew he was able to bring to that particular venue that week, and that's really what he worked on most of his life. I want to jump to something that I know that you want to talk about, and I certainly want to share with the listeners here. You're also a host of a very successful podcast, Breaking Par with Bernard Sheridan. First and foremost, what inspired you to sort of venture out into this medium, and what are some of the things that you like to you know, talk about with your guests and hope to bring to the many listeners that are following your podcast?
Well, what really first made me want to do a podcast was that I had many students who would ask me questions about different topics. And so I thought a great way for me to have that accessible to my students would be to sit down and do a podcast. So when I started the podcast about 3 years ago, it was just me and a microphone, and I would talk about a topic for a half an hour. And that topic ranged anything from maybe putting to what you should do to find a good coach and what you should look for, or what should you look for to find a great junior golf camp for your juniors? What are some of the things that you need to know? And I did that for the first 40 episodes. So 40 weeks, once a week, I did a half-hour show, just me and a microphone talking to the air, which was not that easy to do. And
no.
and I also thought too that in the beginning I didn't worry about messing up because I knew I didn't have any listeners. And I thought, nobody knows who I am. Oh, you know, if I mess up, I mess up. It's no big deal because I might have 1 or 2 listeners out there who are actually my students, and they don't care whether I mess up or not. So that was a great way for me to fine-tune my skill on the microphone as a you know, someone who's hosting a podcast, and hone my skills that way. Well, after 40 weeks, I started to run out of ideas, honestly. So I thought, you know, I need to get other instructors on here and get their take on these ideas and what do they think about it, and because they, of course, don't have the same mind as I do, and they might think differently, or they might think the same and explain it another way that maybe my listeners would understand better. So I contacted, I'm a member of many groups on Facebook that are golf-related groups. So I put it out there and I said, hey, I'm looking for guests to do interviews with on my podcast. Who's up for it? Who's interested? Well, literally within 20 minutes, I got 15 people who wanted to be on the podcast. So, and that's really how it started. And my first guest was Mike Fay, and I just released my 147th show. So I've had 107 guests on so far.
Yeah,
and I actually took a year break too. I took a year break due to the fact that I got throat cancer is what happened. So I had to take a year break, and I did not. I was unable to even speak for about 3 months. So I just basically took a break from it, and then once I recovered, then I came back and started the show again. So I probably would have been at about 200 and some episodes, maybe 207 or 206 or something. But I'm at 147 now.
Well, let me first say I'm glad that you have recovered, and I know that you've done extremely well with your podcast. I know that you've had obviously we share some of the same guests, of course, on yours are on mine as well, and have been over the last several years. And I think what's good about this is this provides another medium. I know that you're on Facebook all the time as I am, and some of the other social media, and it is a great way to network, but it's also a great way of exchanging information. And obviously this podcast not only gave you an opportunity to share and express your thoughts on the game, but also bring a host of other like-minded professionals, and even maybe some that aren't like-minded, to share their views and thoughts and inputs into the game as well. So kudos to you for doing that, and I'm glad that it's been going well. Where can the listeners go? Is there a website or links that they can go to pick up some of the ones that you've released so far?
Oh, absolutely. So there's a couple different places, and my podcast is a little, I don't want to say really unique, but maybe in a way that I do with my podcast, I release it in two formats. I release it on as a podcast, an MP3 file on several different formats: iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher Radio, TuneIn, and a few other formats, SoundCloud, and then I also release it as a video, and a video portion on my YouTube channel. Now, my YouTube channel is Bernard Sheridan, and then I have a website for my podcast that has not only my podcast with both the video and the audio on there, but there is also blog posts on there, and there are instructional videos and things like that, and people can contact me, and I'll be more than happy to, if they want to, if they have a topic that they want to have covered, then I'll either do a video on that topic and put it on my YouTube channel and then put it on the website or whatever. But the website is www.breakingparpodcast.com. And then, of course, the YouTube channel is just my name, Bernard Sheridan. And then you can find me on many social media. Facebook is Breaking Par the Podcast on Facebook, and Twitter it's @Parbreakers, because my previous golf academy that I owned in Pennsylvania was called Parbreakers Golf Academy. So I still use that name, even though I'm with Impact Zone now. I actually closed that facility a few years back when I got offered to come down here to Florida and work with Impact Zone. And then
perfect.
And then I'm on like Instagram and also on Google Plus. I do a lot of things in the golf community on Google Plus, which is Ricky Potts is the mastermind of that. I don't know whether you know Ricky, but
yes, I do.
But Ricky actually also is in charge of digital media at Tiburón now, and I've known Ricky for many years. And now we actually work at the same club, so which is really kind of cool that happened. And I release a lot of stuff there. And now I release a lot of stuff. There's a new website that's over in the UK that contacted me, and that's clubfacegolf.com, and they actually have it's a social media, kind of like a website that's built to bring golfers together and to let them know about different golf courses and things like that. And they asked me if I would be a part of that and write blog posts for them on a regular basis and release my podcast on their website, give them links to that regularly and things like that. So there's a lot of ways that you can hear or find out about things that I do in not just the podcast, but instructional videos and things of that nature.
Now, let me ask you just a final question as we get ready to wrap up. Obviously, I know you're heading back down home to first to Orlando with your son, and then you're going to be heading off over to Naples. Once you kind of get back in the swing of things, for those that might be interested in maybe working with you at your academy down in Naples, how can they? What's the best way to get a hold of you there? How do they get about getting hold of you?
Oh, they can go to impactzonegolf.com. And the number is there. The number there is 239-236-5536, and they can ask that they'd like to take a lesson with Bernard Sheridan, and they will hook you up there. They can also, if they like, they can email me direct. My personal email, which is parbreakers@gmail.com. Or they can call me direct, and I'm not afraid to give out my personal cell phone number, believe it or not, and that's 215-518-0435, and I'll be happy to answer any question that they have about it and set up a time for them to get a lesson with me, and either at the indoor facility or at Tiburón itself, or do a playing lesson, whatever they wish.
Perfect. Well, Bernard, I want to thank you very much. I know it's, I'm sure, been a challenge keeping your eye on the road and speaking with me and sharing some of your thoughts and inputs into the game with my audience. I appreciate you coming on the show, and I'd love to have you come back on again on a future show, but I want to thank you again and be safe on the rest of your journey, and I'm glad that things are went as well as they did down home, and I hope that you continue success with the podcast and also with your academy.
Thanks very much, Ted. I really appreciate you having me, and you have a great show here yourself, and I listen to it often, and I feel very honored that you asked me to be on.
Well, I think what I'll do in the new year, Bernard, if you're able to, I mean, you've got a pretty full plate right now, but I know you're familiar. If you've listened to the podcast, you know that we have Coach's Corner segment. In fact, that preceded your interview tonight. Maybe you'll throw your hat in the ring on a couple of the Coach's Corner segments next year when we start it up again in the new year, and join some of your fellow teacher professional and coaches on there. We have a great panel discussion each and every week on the show before my interview guests, so maybe you'll have some time to squeeze in a couple of those next year. I'll certainly extend the invite.
I would love to do that. I mean, anytime you want me, just let me know, and I'll be more than happy to make the time.
All right, sounds good. Well, safe travels on the rest of your journey, as I said, and Bernard, thank you very much for joining me tonight on Golf Talk Live.
Thanks. Take care, and God bless.
All right, you too. All right, bye-bye. All right, that was my very special guest tonight, Bernard Sheridan. As I mentioned, he is the instructor at the Impact Zone Golf at Tiburón Golf Club in Naples, Florida, which he's on his way back now with a slight jaunt to Orlando to drop off his son. And also the host of Breaking Par with Bernard Sheridan podcast that he's been doing, as he said, for the last several years, interviewing some great fellow professionals in the industry. So thank you to him as well. And again, one more time, I'd like to offer a special thank you to the Coach's Corner panel tonight, Peter Egazarian, John Hughes, Jamie Leno Zimron, and special guest panelist Brett Cohen. Thanks, guys, for doing a fantastic job tonight, as always. And, of course, I would be remiss if I didn't take this opportunity to thank all of the listeners worldwide for faithfully tuning in to Golf Talk Live each and every week. And as this evening will attest to, I certainly have a great amount of pleasure and enjoyment of having a number of highly talented coaches, teacher professionals, authors, and entrepreneurs stopping by the show. And it's really through their participation and guest appearances that have helped to make Golf Talk Live a first-class show. Special thanks to some of the sponsors and supporters of the show, Mr. Jonathan Laird from South Coast Golf Guide. Go to southcoastgolfguide.com to get a copy of the guide if you're interested. Great publication here in the southeastern part of the United States. If you go to southcoastgolfguide.com, you can learn more about some of the great golf courses that are listed in the guide, and you can actually reach out to the courses through the guide if you're wanting to book tee times and that sort of thing, or maybe just check them out. But he'll be more than happy if you're not in the area to ship you off a copy. But if you are coming down somewhere here in the southeastern part of the United States, literally from Texas right over here to northwest part of Florida and all states in between, you can visit most of your larger golf facilities and even some of the larger condos here. And also Edwin Watts, I believe, is carrying the guide as well. But if not, just go to southcoastgolfguide.com and you can get all the information there as well. Also, Meredith Kirk from Meredith Kirk Golf. If you go to her website, meredithkirk.com, she's a great LPGA teacher professional out in the Myrtle Beach, South Carolina area. She's been a guest on the show a number of times as well, but a great teacher professional and a great coach as well, and really gives so much back to the game of golf. Thanks, Meredith, for all of your continued support. Nikki and his lovely wife, Tiffany Litherland. Nikki, of course, is a great golf professional. Thanks for all of your help in spreading the word about my program, Golf Talk Live. Also, Mr. Bernie Pinder from onticgolf.com. Ontic Golf, of course, is a great custom line of putters that Bernie has developed over the years. If you go to onticgolf.com, you can check out the great line there and even purchase yourself a great customized putter there off of his website. Sean Kelly, owner of linkedgolfers.com. Of course, Sean is the top guy, if you will, for Linked Golfers, which is the largest golf group on LinkedIn.com, the social media platform, really designed for business professionals, but Linked Golfers is on there. And linkedgolfers.com is, of course, a platform that he created to sort of carry that brand, if you will, in addition to being on LinkedIn, but also on his own media platform. And, of course, last but not least, Mr. Peter Doyle from Doyle Golf Solutions over in Ireland. Thank you for all of your continued support as well. And on that note, I will see you guys next time right here on Golf Talk Live. God bless everybody and have a great weekend.